One of the biggest mistakes people with type 2 diabetes make happens after 8 p.m. And the frightening part is, most people don't even know they're making it. Every night, millions of adults go to bed believing their blood sugar is finally under control. They skipped dessert. They avoided late-night snacks. They followed the rules. Yet somehow, they still wake up with numbers that are higher than they expected. Sometimes 20 points higher, sometimes 30, sometimes even more. Not because they ate cake, not because they cheated on their diet, and not because they lacked discipline, but because of what happened while they were asleep. In fact, some of the most popular bedtime drinks people choose in an effort to improve their blood sugar may actually be working against them. And one of the drinks on today's warning list is often marketed as a smart choice for people living with diabetes. That's why today's video may surprise you, because I'm going to show you 5 bedtime drinks that may help support better morning blood sugar after age 60. And 3 bedtime drinks I would personally avoid before going to sleep. But before we get to those drinks, there's something important you need to understand. Because if you don't understand what happens overnight, none of the advice in this video will make sense. Before we continue, what's your average fasting blood sugar when you wake up in the morning? Type the number in the comments below. I'm always interested to see how different people's morning readings compare. Now let's talk about what may actually be happening while you're asleep. P. Have you ever gone to bed feeling like you did everything right, only to wake up disappointed? Maybe your blood sugar looked reasonable after dinner. Maybe you avoided sweets. Maybe you stopped eating hours before bedtime. And yet, the next morning your glucose meter shows a number you weren't expecting. For many people, this becomes incredibly frustrating. They start questioning everything. Was it breakfast yesterday? Was it the fruit? Was it the bread? Was it something they ate 3 days ago? The truth is that many adults spend their entire day focusing on blood sugar, while paying very little attention to what happens overnight. And that's unfortunate. Because for some people, the highest blood sugar reading of the entire day happens before breakfast. Think about that. You haven't eaten all night. You haven't had dessert. You haven't touched a carbohydrate for hours. And yet the number is still high. That's why so many people begin feeling discouraged. They start believing that nothing is working, that their body is somehow broken, that all their effort doesn't matter. But in many cases, there is a reason. And understanding that reason can completely change how you think about your evening routine. Here's something most people never hear about. Your body doesn't simply shut down while you sleep. In fact, some very important things continue happening all night long. One of those things involves your liver. And your liver is incredibly important when it comes to blood sugar regulation. Even while you're sleeping, your body still needs energy. Your brain still needs fuel. Your heart is still working. Your lungs are still working. Because of that, your liver keeps a reserve supply of stored glucose. Under normal circumstances, your body releases only what it needs. But in people with type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance can interfere with that process. As a result, the liver may release more glucose than necessary during the night. This is one reason some people go to bed with a perfectly reasonable blood sugar reading and wake up with a much higher one. Not because they ate something, not because they failed, but because their body continued producing glucose while they slept. There's another factor as well. In the early morning hours, the body naturally begins preparing to wake up. Hormones such as cortisol and growth hormone begin increasing. These hormones are completely normal. They're part of your body's natural wake-up process. But they can also make blood sugar management more difficult. For some people, this combination of overnight glucose release and early morning hormone activity creates the perfect setup for high fasting blood sugar. And that's why the right bedtime routine can sometimes make a meaningful difference. Now, that doesn't mean a bedtime drink is magic. It doesn't replace medication. It doesn't replace healthy eating. And it certainly doesn't replace medical advice. But some drinks may help support the things that matter most overnight. And before I show you the first drink, let me explain exactly what those things are. Before we get to the first drink, I want to give you a simple framework. Because not every bedtime drink is created equal. Some may help support a healthier overnight routine. Others may quietly work against it. When I look at a bedtime drink for someone over 60 who is trying to improve morning blood sugar, I want it to do at least one of three things. Number one, support healthy overnight glucose regulation. That doesn't mean forcing blood sugar down. It means supporting the body's natural ability to manage glucose while you sleep. Number two, support deeper, more restorative sleep. Poor sleep and blood sugar often influence each other. Many people focus only on food while completely overlooking sleep quality. But night after night of poor sleep may make blood sugar management more difficult. Number three, avoid creating unnecessary glucose spikes before bed. This sounds obvious, but you'd be surprised how many healthy nighttime drinks contain ingredients that can work against this goal. As we go through today's list, keep those three principles in mind, because every drink we're about to discuss supports at least one of them. Let's start with number 5. Most people think chamomile tea is simply a sleep drink, something your grandmother used when she couldn't fall asleep. But there may be more to the story. Chamomile contains naturally occurring plant compounds that researchers have been interested in for years. One of the reasons is that better sleep and better blood sugar often go hand in hand. Think about what happens after a poor night's sleep. You wake up tired. You crave more carbohydrates. You feel hungrier throughout the day, and your body may become less responsive to insulin. Now compare that with a night of deep, restful sleep. Your body has more opportunity to recover. Your stress hormones may be lower, and many people find it easier to make good food choices the following day. That's where chamomile may fit into the picture. Not because it's some miracle blood sugar solution, but because it may help support one of the foundations of metabolic health: sleep. The best part? It's simple. No expensive supplements, no complicated routine. Just a warm cup of unsweetened chamomile tea about 30 to 60 minutes before bed. One important note: be careful about flavored chamomile products. Some contain added ingredients, sweeteners, or flavor blends that can add unnecessary sugars. Always read the label carefully. The simpler the better. And while chamomile may not be the most powerful drink on today's list, it may be one of the easiest places to start. Now let's move to a drink that surprises many people. If I asked you to walk into your kitchen right now, there's a good chance you already have this ingredient. It's been sitting there for months, maybe even years, and yet most people never think about it as part of a bedtime routine. I'm talking about cinnamon. Now, cinnamon has attracted attention from researchers because certain compounds naturally found in cinnamon appear to interact with pathways involved in glucose metabolism. That doesn't mean cinnamon is a cure. And it certainly doesn't mean sprinkling cinnamon on a donut suddenly makes it healthy. But it does help explain why researchers continue studying it. What I find interesting is that cinnamon tea accomplishes two things at the same time. First, it's naturally free of added sugar when prepared correctly. Second, it creates a comforting evening ritual that can help replace less helpful nighttime habits. For example, many people reach for dessert after dinner. Others grab a sweetened coffee drink. Some turn to packaged snacks while watching television. A warm cup of cinnamon tea can sometimes help break that pattern. And often, breaking the pattern is just as important as the drink itself. Making cinnamon tea is simple. Place a cinnamon stick in hot water and allow it to steep. Or use high-quality cinnamon tea bags with no added sweeteners. If you enjoy a little sweetness, consider a small amount of an appropriate sugar-free option rather than adding sugar or honey. Now let me tell you about James. James was 68 years old. Every morning he woke up frustrated by his blood sugar readings. He spent months focusing on breakfast, changing breakfast, eliminating breakfast, even blaming breakfast. But eventually he realized something. His problem wasn't always beginning in the morning. It was beginning the night before. One of the first changes he made was replacing his evening dessert habit with a simple cup of cinnamon tea. Did cinnamon magically solve everything? No, but it helped create a healthier nighttime routine. And sometimes those small changes create momentum for larger improvements, because better blood sugar management rarely comes from one dramatic change. It usually comes from a series of small decisions repeated consistently over time. And speaking of surprising choices, the next drink on our list is one that many people initially avoid because they assume all milk products belong in the same category. But that's not necessarily true. This is where some people become skeptical. Milk before bed? Really? For years, many people with type 2 diabetes have been told to be cautious around milk because of the carbohydrates naturally found in some dairy products. And that's understandable. But unsweetened soy milk is a little different. The key word here is unsweetened, not vanilla flavored, not sweetened, not dessert-style soy beverages. Unsweetened soy milk. One reason it attracts attention is because it typically contains a combination of protein and relatively few carbohydrates compared to many popular evening beverages. That combination can make it a more balanced choice than drinks that deliver a large amount of sugar right before bed. Another advantage is convenience. You don't need special ingredients. You don't need a complicated recipe. You simply pour a small serving into a glass. Some people prefer it cold. Others warm it slightly before bed. Both approaches can work. What matters most is avoiding the versions loaded with added sugars. Now here's something interesting. Many adults over 60 spend years focusing on what they shouldn't eat, what they shouldn't drink, what they need to avoid. But sometimes the bigger challenge is finding realistic alternatives. Because if a healthy habit feels impossible to maintain, most people won't stick with it. That's where unsweetened soy milk has an advantage. It's easy, it's available almost everywhere, and it can fit naturally into an evening routine. Again, this isn't about creating a miracle. It's about creating consistency. And consistency is often where progress begins. Now let's move to a drink that many people have heard about. But far fewer people have actually tried, and if you've never heard of kefir before, you're not alone. Many people walk past it in the grocery store without ever putting it in their cart. At first glance, it looks similar to yogurt, but kefir has some unique characteristics that have made it increasingly popular among people interested in digestive health. Why does that matter? Because researchers continue exploring the connection between gut health and metabolic health. And while there's still a great deal to learn, it's becoming increasingly clear that the digestive system plays a much larger role in overall health than many people once believed. Kefir contains beneficial bacteria created during the fermentation process. Those bacteria are one reason kefir has attracted so much attention. Now, not every kefir product is the same, and this is important. Many flavored versions contain significant amounts of added sugar. That's exactly what we're trying to avoid before bed. If you're interested in trying kefir, look for plain versions with little or no added sugar. Start with a modest serving. Pay attention to how your body responds. And remember that the goal isn't perfection. The goal is finding habits you can realistically maintain. One thing I like about kefir is that it combines several characteristics we're looking for in a bedtime drink. It's satisfying. It contains protein, and many people find it easier to fit into their routine than some of the more unusual options we're about to discuss. Which brings us to the number one drink on today's list. And honestly, this is the one most people have never heard of. If I stopped 10 people in a grocery store and asked them about Fenugreek Tea, there's a good chance most would have no idea what I was talking about. Yet researchers have been interested in fenugreek for a very long time. Fenugreek is a plant whose seeds have been used traditionally in various parts of the world for generations. And in recent years, those seeds have attracted attention because of their unique fiber content and other naturally occurring compounds. What makes fenugreek particularly interesting is that it approaches the problem differently than many other drinks. Instead of focusing primarily on sleep or primarily on hydration, fenugreek has been studied because of its potential relationship with glucose metabolism itself. Again, that's not a claim that it treats diabetes, and it's certainly not a replacement for medical care, but it is one reason researchers continue investigating it. To prepare fenugreek tea, the seeds are typically steeped in hot water and then strained. The flavor is often described as earthy, slightly bitter, and unlike most herbal teas. Some people enjoy it immediately. Others need time to get used to it. But here's what makes fenugreek our number one choice today. It combines something that many people overlook: curiosity. Most people watching this video have already heard about chamomile. They've already heard about cinnamon. Many have heard about soy milk. Some have heard about kefir. But Fenugreek introduces an entirely new possibility, a drink they may never have considered before. And sometimes discovering a new option is exactly what helps people break out of an old routine that isn't working. Now, before you rush into the kitchen tonight, there's something else we need to discuss. Because some bedtime drinks that appear healthy at first glance may actually work against your goals. And one of them is probably sitting in millions of kitchens right now. Now let's talk about the other side of the equation. Because choosing a better bedtime drink is only half the battle. Sometimes what you stop drinking matters just as much as what you start drinking. And honestly, some of these may surprise you. Let's start with number 3. This one catches a lot of people off guard. After all, herbal tea sounds healthy, and in many cases it is. The problem isn't the tea itself. The problem is what gets added to it. Many flavored herbal teas contain fruit flavorings, sweeteners, honey powders, fruit concentrates, or other ingredients designed to make the tea taste more appealing. Unfortunately, some of those ingredients may add sugars or carbohydrates that people don't realize they're consuming. And remember what we're trying to do. We're trying to avoid unnecessary glucose exposure before bed. That's why I always recommend reading the ingredient list carefully. The simpler the ingredient list, the better. If your herbal tea contains a long list of ingredients you don't recognize, it may be worth taking a closer look. Now let's move to number 2. Golden milk has become extremely popular in recent years, and turmeric itself has attracted plenty of research attention. But here's the problem. Many store-bought versions are not simply turmeric and milk. They're often loaded with sweeteners, coconut sugar, date syrup, added sugars, flavor blends, and ingredients designed to improve taste rather than support blood sugar goals. The result? A drink that sounds healthy, but may contain far more sugar than most people expect. Now, if you want to make your own version at home using unsweetened ingredients, that's a completely different conversation. But many commercial versions are much closer to a dessert beverage than a bedtime drink. And that's why they landed on today's warning list. Which brings us to number 1, and this is the drink that surprises people most. I know, the name sounds reassuring. Diabetic shake, glucose control shake, blood sugar friendly shake. The marketing sounds perfect. But here's the question I always encourage people to ask. Have you actually read the label? Many of these products contain substantial amounts of carbohydrates. Others contain ingredients that digest quickly, and some contain more calories than people realize. Now, that doesn't automatically make them bad. There are situations where these products may be useful, but many people assume that because the word diabetic appears on the package, it must automatically be the best choice before bed. And that's simply not always true. Before making any product part of your nightly routine, take a few moments to review the nutrition label carefully. Because sometimes the healthiest looking package can create the most confusion. And that's exactly why understanding ingredients is often more important than trusting marketing. Now let's pull everything together. If you've watched this far, you might be wondering something. Which drink should I try first? My answer is simple. Pick 1, not 5. 1. Choose the option that feels realistic for your lifestyle. Maybe that's chamomile tea. Maybe it's cinnamon tea. Maybe you're curious about kefir. Or perhaps you want to experiment with fenugreek tea. Whatever you choose, give it time. 1 night doesn't tell you much. Neither does 2 nights. Instead, commit to 14 days. For the next 2 weeks, keep your bedtime routine as consistent as possible. Drink your chosen beverage approximately 30 to 60 minutes before bed. Then monitor 2 things. First, your fasting blood sugar. Second, how you feel when you wake up. Your energy, your sleep quality, your overall morning routine. Write those observations down. Because trends are often more meaningful than individual readings. And over time, those trends may reveal patterns you never noticed before. Remember, your glucose meter is a tool, not a judge. Its job is to provide information. And the more information you have, the better decisions you can make moving forward. Here's the most important takeaway from today's video. Morning blood sugar is not always about what you ate for breakfast. And it's not always about what you ate for dinner. Sometimes the story begins much later. During the hours when you're asleep, That's why your evening routine matters, not because it guarantees perfect numbers, but because small habits repeated consistently can have a meaningful impact over time. Tonight, instead of reaching for a random bedtime drink, consider making a more intentional choice. Your future self may thank you for it. And before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Which bedtime drink are you most interested in trying? Chamomile tea? Cinnamon tea? Unsweetened soy milk? Kefir? Or Fenugreek tea? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, subscribe to Simple Blood Sugar and join us for more practical, research-based discussions about food, nutrition, and blood sugar after 60. Thank you for watching. Sleep well, and I'll see you in the next video.